Hoş geldiniz. I'm a professor at Michigan State University in America, and it's a privilege to be here today. It's an even greater privilege to be the final speaker of this day. I want to applaud you for your stamina, for staying, and I'd like to also thank you for the very thoughtfulness that you've exhibited in questions and in discussions and so on. The time that we have here is just a few minutes. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about how I got into teaching and use it as a story to spring into something that's a larger story related to AI. How many of you are teachers, school teachers? Oh, this is great. Good. Thanks for raising your hands. How many of you prepare new teachers? You work at a university educating. Good. How many of you do work that supports teachers already teaching in the schools? You do professional development. Good. So there's a broad sample of folks here who I would call frontline workers. I began my teaching when I was much younger, and the technology at the time was much different. This is called a TRS-80, and you can see on the left a little cassette recorder, and there were floppy drives here. Maybe some of you started with your technology in these days. In addition to starting out as a teacher, I became involved in teacher preparation. And that's what I do mostly today, although I still go into schools and work with kids. This is a photograph of one of my classrooms. And you'll notice a couple of things about it. Students are spread out around the room in small groups. We allow no more than 25 students in a class when we prepare teachers. They have laptops, they have books, all kinds of tools are available to them. Let's go in and look a little closer. These three students are preparing to become science teachers at the secondary level. You'll notice that they have smartphones, tablets, laptops, and of course there's a book on the table along the bottom of the screen. And if you look closely at the top, you'll see three screens at the top. Those are robots. They're very inexpensive robots. And we're experimenting now with the use of robots in teacher preparation. When a student cannot make it to my class in person, they're expected to use their phone or laptop and activate a robot. And they can participate in class fully, remotely. There's no reason to be absent because you're sick. Okay, you need to be in class. So there's a lot of experimentation going on in the way we prepare teachers. I'm really interested in teacher learning as well, as I know many of you are. Here I am working in Kazakhstan with some teachers, thinking about how can AI become an integral part of how they plan and what they do with students. Here I'm working with people in Kazakhstan, who will be training other teachers. So they're teacher trainers. It's really interesting and exciting work. And the focus here is in rural education. 40% of the teachers in Kazakhstan are in rural settings, very remote. I'm also interested in teacher technology learning. In other words, how do you take someone who's new to teaching and apprentice them early on and into and throughout a career? One of our partners at the university is with a startup company that's trying to imagine classrooms where every wall is a touch screen in a classroom. So students could simply walk up and start moving and manipulating apps and icons, and they would synchronize with a phone or a tablet. You can see teachers here excitedly moving things around on a screen, becoming comfortable. Also work here, thinking about teacher learning on a more micro level in terms of eye movements and so on. And then finally, This work focuses on research, on teachers and their technology learning. More recently, had a fabulous opportunity to partner with colleagues at Gazi University. And I think Hassan and Saadin are here in the room. And we did an interesting work looking at the use of AI in supporting teachers, helping diagnose children who might have reading fluency challenges. Also with a couple of colleagues here in Turkey, published a book for teachers on integrating technology and effectively into their teaching in the schools. Maybe some of you are familiar with this particular volume. Pegam is the publisher. But more recently, I'm pleased that TÜBİTAK has supported AI work that colleagues Serkan Düzgün and I and a couple of other colleagues have done, integrating AI into graduate study and into academic writing. This is our team here. You might be familiar with these colleagues. Pleased to work with them. Hayati Akyol was my PhD student when I was a brand new professor. And so it's been a pleasure to keep contact with him over the years. Some of you may know him, and Serkan is here today. I've also been honored to support and host 5 Turkish young scholars at my university, and 2 more are coming in the next couple of years. So I feel like your investment through TÜBİTAK has really created mutual opportunities for thinking about AI. And more recently, some young, energetic scholars here in Turkey and I are partnering on an AI project in terms of teacher preparation. So I share all these stories with partners here in Turkey, and the work with students is a kind of story, is a kind of preface to say that the work in teacher development and using AI is well underway. And the work that I do is really focused on the human part of all of this. The question that I'm trying to really grapple with, and I know many of you are too, is how do we equip 100 million teachers on the planet? How do we do this in a way that is both effective and ethical? Now, I know in Turkey you have about 1 million teachers, but worldwide we're thinking big picture. How do we quickly accelerate the process of equipping teachers and moving them into doing skillful, thoughtful, ethical things with this quickly moving technology? How do we do that? What are the lessons that we can learn from projects that have already been underway? That's what I'd like to talk about in just a few minutes that I have remaining. I'd planned to talk a little bit about sort of big picture things, but my colleagues throughout the day have done that. I'm going to focus on what I'm going to call an odyssey. And if you're familiar with Homer's epic story of the Odyssey, where Odysseus travels for 10 years, struggling, searching, moving toward a destination, that kind of metaphor, that kind of literary journey is one that I think we're on together. And I want to talk about a particular journey, a particular odyssey that I've been engaged with. And to tell that story, I want to step back for a moment and look at a timeline. Some of you are aware that the story and technology integration in classrooms really began in the 1980s. Apple Computer invested for 10 years in a series of classrooms across North America to see what happens when you intensify technology use in classrooms. It was called Apple Classroom of Tomorrow. Massive investment of money, people, time, expertise, research, and teacher development. But it ended suddenly after 10 years. And many people haven't read the book, they haven't read the reports, they're not aware of the lessons that can be learned from that. Well, I decided with colleagues to pick that up. And so Starting in 2009, we began what we called the Michigan Teacher of Tomorrow Project. And so for a 10-year period, much like Odysseus on his 10-year journey, my colleagues and I invested 10 years into studying one school that had the aim of intensely integrating technology into its curriculum, into teaching and learning. More recently, in Kazakhstan, I've had the good fortune of a 2-year project looking at the integration of AI into teaching. And in the future, maybe there's a series of Turkey projects for teachers of tomorrow. And I heard about some of those today. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to focus on this particular project here, the Michigan project. A 10-year project. Can you imagine investing 10 years of your life trying to understand what works and doesn't work in integrating technology? That's what my doctoral students and I did. I'd like to share just a few things with you in the time that remains. The first is that this was a school-university partnership. And notice that the word school is first. That we learned pretty quickly if this was going to work, that the teachers needed to be in the lead. That we couldn't just simply hand out or talk about or show what needed to be done. They needed to decide the things that needed to be worked on first and second and third. And if we got that backwards, if we thought we as university people knew what needed to be done, we ran into friction, heavy friction, resistance. Our university is located where that little helmet is, and that horse is where the school is located. We're about 2 hours apart. So I just want to give you a geographical sense. The school itself, we gave it a pseudonym, a fake name, to protect the identity, pictured here. And just a few things about the school. It's rural, so it's farmland all around it. It's a middle school. Those are the grades. There were 40 teachers in the school. There was one person designated as tech support. There were 648 students. A little bit about our university, just to give you a context of this partnership. I brought doctoral students with me in this work. 10 of them are pictured here. Over the 10-year period, there were a total of 24 PhD students. So it was a very labor-intensive project to really support these 40 teachers. A little bit about the approach. How would we approach tech integration in a way that was deep and lasting and that would sustain beyond the 10 years? One is that our guiding way of thinking, our metaphor, we called it, we're going to grow into this. Much like plant growth, it needed to be nurtured in many different ways. That our partnership was that we would nurture each other. Now, I want to contrast this with the way that most tech integration efforts happen that I see. And they're called the rollout method or the delivery method. Things are designed and created and so on, and then they just foist them on people. And the result is that teachers often are like, whoa, why are we doing this? Or this is another innovation? We've just had 7. So our approach was one of growth, of slow, gradual growth, not rolling things out on people, not delivering it to them. A second thing that really guided our work is that everybody's involved. Everybody participates. The woman in the pink outfit here is the principal of the school. She was at every workshop every year for 10 years. It was essential that she be there as a leader so that others could see that this mattered and this was important. The principal was not a manager off somewhere else taking care of business, but they were somebody engaged deeply in the technology efforts within the school. The general ethos of the effort was one of play. And our lesson here was learned from one of the great minds of the 20th century, who said, what we need for deep learning is combinatory play. Technology integration, which requires deep learning, needs playtime. In fact, the way this is quoted by Einstein is that combinatory play is the essential feature in productive thought. And so for somebody who whose thinking really had an impact, whose actions had an impact, he articulated well the importance of play in learning to do deep things like technology integration. So we created what we called sandbox times for teachers, principals, even parents on occasion, to play with the technology, see what's possible. We carved out that time for that to happen. It might sound hard, might sound something of great resistance, but it's something that had profound impact. One last theme that I'll share in the time that I have. This has to do with the reference, the frame of reference. We spent considerable time supporting and learning from teachers that their way of thinking about technology needed clarity, it needed guidance, and that technology was a tool. Many people mentioned this. It's a tool used for a purpose to accomplish a goal. And that this means that anything could be a tool, like a pocket knife. This is a tool. This happens to be a single-use tool. It cuts. But there are multi-use tools like this, tools that can do multiple things. Maybe you've seen a knife like this, okay? Multi-purpose. And there are even super mega tools that can do many different things. And the kind of digital technologies we have are similar. We have single, multi, and mega use tools. And AI, the new AIs are fitting here. And so we needed teachers to have a broader way of thinking about technologies, a kind of language, if you will. We also found that guiding them to think not just about technology singular, but technology plural, technologies. That if they were looking for a tool to accomplish a goal with students, they didn't need to think about one technology, but several technologies, and select judiciously among them. There may be one AI tool that's better than others for a certain lesson, for a certain goal, for a certain outcome. And so we created what we called spectra. If you take writing, for example, there are a range of tools we can use to write. We can use our finger in the sand. We could use a brush, a pencil, a keyboard, a stylus on a screen, and, of course, speech to text. We found these spectra to be profoundly transformative for teachers. They often wanted to jump right to the straight to one tool and just use it, often repeatedly over and over. But if we help them see a broader conception of technology, that helped advance and move their progress forward. So in the time that I have, which has been brief, I hope this has given you a little flavor of a way to think about professional development for the long term. We're now writing a book about the 10 years. It finished in 2019, just as the pandemic came. There were two great achievements. One was that this school transitioned through the pandemic smoothly because it had invested those 10 years. It had all teachers on board using the tools in ways that were deep and meaningful. I think that can happen elsewhere. I think often we underestimate the amount of time it takes for humans to do deep work, like technology integration. We found that by year 6, finally, most everybody was on board. It can't happen fast. We haven't seen it happen. Apple's experiment found similar results, a decade. So I leave this morning with the word odyssey on your mind. It might take 10 years or more. We have 100 million teachers to equip on the planet, about 1 million in Turkey. It's not going to happen tomorrow or in a year. It's going to take some years. Let's work on the ecosystem together. And as this day has shown, there are profound ways we can do it. And there are many people in this room and elsewhere who are committed to doing that. Thanks for being here today and for your time.
Biraz öyle alalım.